The Brandon Peters Show may contain explicit language and detailed plot points. For more information on the show, stay tuned to the end of the episode.
The summer of 2004 at 20.
Welcome back to the Brandon Peters Show and the summer of 2004 at 20 series. Today features,
old.
I know, today features the weekend of movies that was May 14th through 16th, 2004. Joining me for that analysis from Puck and the Outside Scoop, which this week is salted caramel.
Ooh, I'll have some of that.
It's delicious. I recommend it. So Scott Mendelson.
How you doing?
Not bad. And spending a day without an Abe from We Live Entertainment, and out now with Aaron and Abe, Aaron Neuwirth.
Podcast. Take it. It's yours.
All right. This episode will feature 4 films that were released in some capacity over May 14th through 16th in the year 2004. This is the second week here of this series. So if you are coming in now, go back, listen to it. But I'm pretty sure Van Helsing could be taken down this week. It was number 1 at the box office the week before. We'll have to see where we get there with the review at the end. So heat check here after 1 episode and getting ready to go into this one. How are we feeling so far on 2004 summer?
Well, this week was probably better than last week by comparison. The big movie, I'm a fan of the big film. I always have been.
Okay,
and
here we go.
As I mentioned this to Aaron earlier in unrelated context, I really need to see more Jim Jarmusch films because it's a blind spot. But every time I watch one, I like one.
Gotcha. All right. Well, that'll do it for today's episode. No, just kidding.
At this point in the summer, this is a week after I took my SATs now at this point. So everything's like pretty downhill from here because it's just like finish up the year. I was on our track team, so track's over pretty much. So I'm just like cruising through, getting through the rest of the
I was in finals week at this point.
That's senior year for me. So yeah, I was, finals and that's
I
it.
graduated college a year ago.
There you go. Okay. Well, before we get to our first film, we start, as always, with the news.
And I found a reason for you. And the reason is news.
Normally, this should have been with last week's news, but I'm going to bring it up here from May 9th. The wedding.
Is that breaking one of the rules?
Yeah, it's breaking one of the rules.
Okay.
The first of all.
How many rules we break this episode?
Here we go. On May 9th, the wedding of Kate Beckinsale and Len Wiseman. So she got married during the opening weekend of her big summer movie. So congrats. I think that went well.
Wait, when
Like, when she watches it for the first time, it's like, oh fuck, I will marry you.
Well, it went well because she was married to Michael Sheen. They all worked together on the Underworld together.
Yes.
Left Michael Sheen, went with Len to live free or die hard Wiseman.
And
then they were together for a good long while. And now they're not together anymore either. But
the ballerinas led one.
ballerinas led of this summer, yes.
Yeah.
Wait, did they get married? You said you saved this news? Was this last week or did they get married this week?
They got married on May 9th, which would have been the Sunday, which I usually take
so
the news.
So she got to see the giant box office plunge of the movie that opened the previous week on her wedding.
Yes.
Because she cares about it.
So I usually take the news from Monday through Sunday because Sunday's part of our box office weekend. So that's where I usually pull the news from. But that one should have been included last week. I did not. So breaking the rules. So to start our week this week, May 10th, the Laris World Sports Awards. So the Sportsman Award went to Michael Schumacher, and the Sportswoman Award went to Annika Sorenstam. And the team that won it was the English men's national rugby union team, because sportsmanship and rugby go hand in hand.
Yeah, they get all together, they hug.
Yeah. On May 14th, the Constitutional Court of South Korea overturns the impeachment of President Roh Moo-hyun. I sounded like I knew how to pronounce that, but I really didn't. On May 15th, at the 129th Preakness, Stuart Elliott aboard Smarty Jones wins in 1:55:59. It's a horse race, I believe.
There's a lot of horse racing this summer. What the
It's
hell,
a summer
man?
of Hey. Well, yeah, we'll just go
And
ahead.
to prepare us for Seabiscuit. So
Seabit, yeah, there we go.
Touche.
On May 5th,
the previous year, Seabiscuit 03.
Yeah.
It's
It was
from the hype. It's from the hype.
residual effect of Seabiscuit.
Yes.
From High Space. So on that same day, Shrek 2 premiered at Cannes.
That's right.
Not here yet. It's classy shit there. So, we're going that. And also on that day, while Cannes was going on, so was Eurovision, the 49th iteration of it. Ruslana for Ukraine wins singing Wild Dances in Istanbul. So congrats to Ruslana.
This is neither criticism nor compliment, but Shrek 2 would have blended it right in there too.
There you go. The next day,
Istanbul loves donkey.
the next day, May 16th, was the day of mourning at the Bukovina Forest, just outside of Kyiv, the Ukraine, where during the 1930s and early 1940s, communist Bolsheviks executed over 100,000 Ukrainian civilians. So, day of mourning, which
Good thing nothing bad ever happened in Ukraine ever again.
No.
But donkey though,
intense.
He's hilarious. So that's important. I'm making falafel.
That'll take us into our deaths of the week. American singer-songwriter John Whitehead was murdered outside of his home. Yeah. Oof. Choreographer June Taylor. The bassist for the Moody Blues, Clint Warwick. Actress Anna Lee. Jazz clarinist and composer John Laporta. Composer and conductor Marius Constant. And Irish rugby footballer and coach Mick Doyle. And then we have a birthday. These aren't going to happen all the time. We have many birthdays actually this week because born this week in 2004 were the Gosselin sextuplets, who you might remember were the subject of John and Kate plus 8, which ran. Get this, that show or iterations of it ran from 2007 to 2017. It's only been canceled for 7 years, which I feel like is a lot less than I thought it would have been canceled. Yeah. Because it was rebranded Kate plus 8, which cleverly spelled it EI letter 8 HT. And then, so it ran from 2007 to like 2011 or 12, was off the air for a bit, and then came back for a special. And then they kept it going for another couple of years.
Why was it off the air for a bit?
It did not go off the air because of the divorce. It stayed on track. It just changed that following season to that. I know way more about this show than I wanted to because of doing this research. But there was a divorce, a very public, messy divorce.
Shocker, I know.
John like Kate, the 8, and plus more, apparently.
I had no idea it ran for that long. It's like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon that everybody thinks just ran for like 65 episodes in the 80s, but actually ran for like 11 years.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy. But I was like, who was watching this shit in 2017?
I don't get it, Brandon. There's so many kids.
So like did they just turn it into like the Rob Dyrdek Fantasy Factory where there's a network that just runs it all day?
And now they own Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
No, I'm guessing.
The kids live in the tower.
Yeah. So so
save our housing.
We'll go into our first film, which is like sort of like Jim Jarmusch and 3 Shorts plus 8. It's coffee and cigarettes. This played in
this economy.
You're Bill Murray. Bill Groundhog Day ghost busting ass Murray. Who you gonna call?
I know that. Just don't tell anybody.
If you don't like it here, we go down to Taco Bell or something. Maybe that's more your style.
What are you saying, man? You're saying like I'm like a Taco Bell kind of guy?
How long have you been living in LA?
Oh, well, we've been here about 7 years.
I do love visiting LA. It's a great place to visit. It's even a nicer place to leave.
Do you smoke?
Only when I drink coffee. I drink a lot of coffee before I go to sleep, and I can dream fast.
That's how my dreams work.
How's Johnny?
Who?
Jimmy. Tommy.
It's Lee.
Coffee and cigarettes, that's not too healthy, is it now? Can I get you a sandwich or something?
No.
Y'all from around here?
No.
You brother and sister?
Yes.
I worked with this drummer the other day. I think you ought to check him out.
What are you trying to tell me? Drumming on my record sucks, or what are you saying?
So, Jack, are you gonna show me how the coil works?
Yeah, all right.
I have a dentist appointment, but I don't want to go. I don't like the dentist. You want to go for me?
Thank you very much.
Are you two twins?
Yes, she is.
Give me a home number. I'll call you.
Can I say no?
Cigarettes and coffee, man. That's a combination.
Damn. That don't sound too good, Bill Murray.
It's just smoker's cough.
This played in 5 theaters this weekend. It's directed by Jim Jarmusch, written by Jim Jarmusch, starring Roberto Benigni.
Hey, the Oscar winner.
Hey! I made the day the clown cried. Anyways, Stephen Wright.
That's a joke for like 6 people. That's great.
I know. Joy Lee, Shankly, Steve Buscemi, Iggy Pop, Tom Waits, Joseph Regano, Vinny Vela, Renee French, EJ Rodriguez, Alex Descos, Isaac De Banco, Kate Blanchett, Michael Hogan, Jack White, Meg White, Alfred Molina, Steve Coogan, Katie Hans, The Jizza, The RZA, Bill Murray, William Rice, and Taylor Mead. It's a series of vignettes that all have coffee and cigarettes in common. This originated as 3 short films, which are included in this film to kick it off. They go back to 1986, 1989, and 1995. This comes for Jarmusch between Ghost Dog and Broken Flowers. And Aaron, you are a big Jim Jarmusch fan, so I'm going to let you kick this one off.
Yeah, you can kind of see my Patterson special Japanese collector's edition somewhere in there. I'm a huge Jim Jarmusch fan. At this point in time, I had seen Ghost Dog and was pretty obsessed with it. I had seen Dead Man, which I was also a big fan of, and I was still catching up slowly on like the previous Jim Jarmusch films based on what I could rent at Blockbuster or Hot Video at the time. But regardless, I saw this with my mom in theaters when it came out, when it was eventually, more theaters our way. And I didn't know anything about it beyond the guy that directed Ghost Dog has like an anthology movie. So I'm like, okay, cool. I didn't know that the shorts like reigned from back in the 80s, and like the Tom Waits one and Iggy Pop one, that won like something for like short films or whatever. But regardless, I was just like, yeah, cool. Watched it, loved it. I had a great time with it. It's probably like in the middle of the pack with how I rank Jarmusch films, but as far as just sheer entertainment value, I think there's a lot to like about this format. There's a lot of interesting connections I like to think about as far as why these films and why these stories. I'm not going to say every single one of them will knock out of the park. I think the first like few you kind of like have to get in the right groove. Although Benigni's awkwardness in Jarmusch films generally makes me smile, so I don't really mind that at all. But like once it really like kicks into gear around the like Kate Blanchett one, or like the one with my favorite title, which is Jack shows Meg his Tesla coil, um, which is just that's wonderful. Like I feel like it just gets on a kind of a run where it's a lot of just like hit through to the end that I really appreciate. One of my favorite lines in movies is from, I believe, the Jizza, who says, "You could trust us, Bill Murray," which just kills me every single time I hear it.
Is this one of the first movies to like ironically call out stuff like that? Like,
yeah,
because that would become a regular form of humor we're still in right now, where you have to like they call out the name of the celebrity, like
I
as
wouldn't
a
say
point of
necessarily that kind
ridiculousness.
of thing. I wouldn't say necessarily that. I think there's other movies that have done like ironically naming the celebrity.
Yeah.
Look at like Austin Powers' Spy Who Shagged Me, for example.
Oh
Like
yeah. Okay. Yep.
like, but I will say I think it's the start of the run of Bill Murray is an eccentric guy who shows up in places. I feel like this is the first movie that kind of exposes that to some degree. Because it's like this doesn't seem very separated from real life. There's probably a scenario where Bill Murray does just like randomly act as a waiter in a coffee shop every now and then just because he feels like it. And that's the least creepy thing that we can associate with Bill Murray. Regardless, there is a lot of fun to be had throughout this thing. I really like the various guests that we get in this. If I had to pick a favorite, it's probably between Delirium, which is Jizza Rizza and Bill Murray, and the Steve Coogan and Alfred Molina one, which absolutely floors me every time I watch it.
That one is that's like this. That's like the marquee. You know, if this is a concert, that's a headliner.
That's the fistful of the end of this movie.
It's such a fun bit, and like just the way it kind of reveals more layers to it as far as what's actually happening, and it's very funnily played by both actors. I'll let you guys go, but like I really enjoyed this. I think there's too many, like this was like 10 maybe, I think
11. 3 plus 8 new ones, which I'll say it's astounding that the aesthetic holds throughout. Like it doesn't feel like it was. I mean, it doesn't feel like there's such a distance between some of these filming. Like
I would agree. I think that comes down to the talent that Jarmusch brings to it, because it's one thing to just assemble short films, another thing to have a kind of rhythm that goes with it.
And kind of a timeless theme of what's going on at this time.
Yes, it's connected by beyond just the coffee and cigarettes. It's connected by a few specific things, which is not unlike some of his other movies like Night and Earth, that have a similar vignette sort of style. But yeah, no, I'm a big fan. I've seen it every time I watch it. I feel like I like it more.
Scott,
excuse me. No, big fan, and I like the core idea of just having a dozen or so short films with actors that I like to sort of lazy simplification here, but basically cosplaying My Dinner with Andre, where they just sit and talk, and the entertainment value comes in what they talk about and how they talk about it. And so right away, it's like, okay, this is going to be relatively pleasurable, assuming that, and yeah, there are some that are better than others. I thought the first one was very strong. It sort of reminded me that another thing that I need to make an effort to track down Roberto Benigni movies that are good. So unfortunately, and
we did that.
most of my exposure has been, the mainstream stuff, which Oscar wins notwithstanding is not him at its best.
Odd person to have returned for another summer of, to be honest with you. Like odd person. He was in the last one. Now he showed up at the beginning.
It's just more like downhill after he wins his Oscars. Like I don't think Life is Beautiful is a bad movie. I get the arguments around it, but like I at least think he's doing good stuff in it. But like it does seem like right after that, it's like I guess he just stopped doing interesting. You feel like that could be a net positive for him, and it kind of wasn't overall.
Yeah.
Anyway, this movie from 2004.
But yeah, I mean, the Coogan Molina thing is just fucking awesome. I mean, on its own, that would have, should have won a best, short film Oscar, because it's like a perfect improv sketch in the sense that it builds and builds and then it switches. It builds and builds and then switches. And it ends like any good improv sketch. It ends almost entirely the opposite of the energy it's been building to, but it earns it. And yeah, it's just two wonderful character actors that are just riffing on each other in a way that just is absolutely delightful. And this movie is it's pure pleasure. And
this is the start of a big Molina summer, by the way.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Is it obviously Spider-Man 2, but is there anything else?
Does it get bigger than Jarmusch and Raimi?
That's fair. That's
The
fair.
two titans of summer.
Yeah.
In the love of the game, for the love of the game, Sam Raimi. But no, and it's you're right. It's very consistent in a way that kind of surprised me, especially, vaguely reading briefly that, yeah, some of these were like from the 80s. Like, okay, whatever. The Blanchett one is very obviously it's a gimmick, but it's so authentic. I mean, it feels raw.
Well, it happens when you get like the best actress working
Yes.
to do one of these things.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is, I don't want to say she's in her prime because I don't want to denigrate anything. She's still awesome.
Prime's still going.
If there's a prime, it hasn't.
Prime started in '98, and it's
yeah, but I mean, it's
if
but
there's
this is right when she's starting to.
still
Just
here.
like,
We're still here.
It feels like, if anything, it feels like a test run for like the Bob Dylan movie.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Like, but that one's a delight. The Bill Murray one's very funny. Yeah, they're all. I mean, there are some that I like more than others, but I don't think any offhand. I thought there were any that were bad. And also, they're so well paced that even if one wasn't exactly rocking my boat, it basically just had to sneeze and they move on to the next one.
Yeah.
So yeah, I had a really good time with this.
Yeah. I like this one as well. And like Aaron, I've seen this one a few times, and I like it more. I think the first time I saw it was like right around when it came out on a DVD or something, because this one was heavily buzzed about through like trades and little like Entertainment Tonight shows and stuff. And I think I was wanting more outright obvious comedy from it when I was first watching it, especially the age I was at. But it's smarter than that. It's kind of it reminds me. This feels like a Spike Lee, Richard Linklater, Kevin Smith by way of David Lynch, in a way, like, because there's an oddness and an uneasiness that I don't know when these are going to end. I don't know how these are going to end. I feel like we're going somewhere, but are we going anywhere? Like, it's got the Lynch trickery of like, you might just, what's he doing here? What's he doing here? What's he doing here? And it also.
You name directors that all came up together. I mean, Spike Lee and Jarmusch especially, like they literally played at the same time, moved their first movies at the same time.
I mean, this has got a lot of She's Gotta Have It, Slacker, and Clerks to it that I think is there, but it's got this eeriness that holds in something like an Eraserhead, that is like
the mood is
unintentional or intentional. The mood feels that way. But this is also, like I said, this also feels like one last relic from what the 90s produced a lot more. Like, this feels like it belonged there. We're still in 2004, so stuff like that's still coming out, but this feels like one of the last punches at that, what that 90s we called them all indies, but stars started jumping in on them, but a little elevated indie from like the 90s with the help of a bigger cast. And
again, I mean, I think like the people that you've mentioned maintain, like Jarmusch maintains that for like Broken Flowers.
Oh yeah.
No, I know what you're saying for sure.
And
this one in the more obvious look and feel to it than
okay, that's fair. As far
it's very low rent with A-list names in it. And I like the handshakes that happen throughout with ones you wouldn't expect. Like, there's a running theme. There's another running theme, and then there's themes that hit in different ones and match. Like, we've talked about how we love the Coogan one. The Blanchett one handshakes that one. It's about two one where they're actual relatives and they're excited to kind of meet, and then they're like at the end. And then the other ones with like Coogan and Molina discovering and trying to get to that, and then kind of being like, well, they at the end of the day, whether they are your relative or they could be, that excitement is by the end of it.
And as far as feeling like a 90s time capsule, as required by law for these kind of movies, you have Steve Buscemi in a small role.
Mm-hmm. And it's Steve Buscemi. No, it's Buscemi in the 80s. That's where he's from the 80s. Like, so he had TV guest spots. He had not broken out yet as his own, that guy.
Yeah.
He has all of his hair and it's wavy still.
And he does that accent and comes in, and he does steal that scene with his Elvis story.
But he was like a 90s, 80s. Every indie director worked with Buscemi at some point.
Yeah.
For good reason. He's great. And he's a big Jarmusch guy. He sticks with Jarmusch for a good one. He pops up here and there in a lot of his movies.
Yeah, I love the weird stuff like the Henry Silva framed photo in the background. But like, what diner has Henry Silva?
Well, that's because like I'm sitting there as a giant Ghost Dog fan, being like, I get what we're doing here. It's the Italian guys. It's Henry Silva. Like I'm sitting there like eating that up.
Yeah. And you know, I like what odd, because that's what makes this film work, because you can't exactly remember everything happening in this film. So the next time there's a lot of recycled stuff that's still new to you, and then there's stuff that you're like picking out differently with these themes and conversations. And I have to wonder, is this lifestyle something that has kind of disappeared with the digital age? Because you used to like go out to a diner for chat, people smoked or whatever, you go see a movie, afterwards you go hit up a food joint, sit at a table, someone smoked, drank coffee, talked about it. Like, I feel like this is something that, granted, it's evolved to, we're sitting here on Zoom and stuff, but I feel like that, because I mean, smoking's bad for you, it's fucking awful, you shouldn't do it.
But I would argue the fact that we're not like big city living people, that probably just takes away from it a bit. I'm not saying it's impossible for this to happen in like.
I mean, I used to go do this stuff like college,
high school,
but
it's certainly I could see it being a less than thing now for certain areas, but I can imagine it's still more of a frequent thing in New York City or Chicago or LA to varying degrees. Obviously, yes, the atmosphere has changed as far as. You need to go to like specific kinds of bars or even bars you can't smoke really anywhere anymore.
No.
I mean, good riddance. I'm not again.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's bad for you.
But like the idea of, people sitting down to have conversations, that's always going to be a thing. I get it as far as we have phones and whatnot now, but like, I don't think it's been entirely replaced, but certainly, yes, this is a very specific, kind of time.
The server that has to come talk, like there's the one woman by herself in the scene, and like, is desperately trying to fill her cup, or like make sure she's not lonely.
That's the most Lynchian one, by the way, for me. That's the one that feels the most like something out of like a Twin Peaks episode.
Yeah, and she's like, I have it perfectly made. I have it perfectly mixed. Do not mess with it.
The cartoonist Renee French is the
Renee French. Yeah. So I mean, there's one like It's when I forget them. I really like the Iggy Pop Tom Waits one's funny. Those guys have a fun energy. It's great. And Tom Waits is just such an underappreciated actor.
He's great. Yeah. And that's like you have Iggy Pop and them, and they're talking about their music not being in the jukebox, and later on you hear the Iggy Pop song or Stooges in one of the things.
Yep.
It's just there's little handshakes like you said throughout.
Yeah.
Also, we haven't emphasized this, but as fun as this can be, most of the stories deal with some kind of like upsetting notion that's like a disturbance between friends or something that's like gone wrong or something that's it keeps it fairly melancholy as far as what's actually happening in most of these conversations, which is for being ostensibly a comedy, it's a fairly sad movie, which is kind of interesting.
Kind of, yeah.
It ends on somewhat dour notes as far as
I mean, it's funny people having funny conversations about not entirely funny subject matter.
Yeah. I mean, the only one that's like truly funny is probably the RZA, Jizza, and Bill Murray.
That's
the only one
that's outright.
Yeah.
And I mean, just the setup of Jack shows Meg his Tesla coil. I mean, that's inherently like, okay, this is probably a gag.
Right. Well, he uses the musicians in this to pull off that whole Wayne's World thing that they do, where they did with Aerosmith on SNL and then Alice Cooper in the movie, where they're just these crazy weird musicians, but when they chat, they're like really intelligent. Because the Wu-Tang's talking about caffeine and bad for you and all this, and it's like this unexpected high IQ conversation coming from the rebellious, rambunctious musical act. It's a kind of a humor that he's trying to put throughout with all those guys, because Tom Waits talks about doing surgery and all this stuff, and Jack and Meg White, the Tesla coil, like it's sort of the unexpected conversation you get from them.
Yeah, this is 2004. So like I'm also like getting into Wu-Tang more at this time too, because I just like discovered we'll see more of it's a big RZA summer also, by the way.
Yeah, this is when they're all like solo a lot. I mean, this is
Yeah,
because this is
there
after
are,
Gravel Pit, so yeah.
but like I, again, the Ghost Dog thing, he did the music, so now I'm like, what is this? This sounds amazing. And I just it led me to more that led me to
He has Kill Bill. Yeah, that last year would have been Kill Bill. Yeah.
So like that was, and in the ads back in the day on the radio, it was like Kill Bill directed by Quentin Tarantino, music by the RZA. And I was like, this
Yeah. Yeah, he was coming up and becoming a household name. Because most of the time it was Method Man and Old Dirty Bastard were the household names from the Wu-Tang Clan. But then Ghostface Killer make a pretty good name for himself as well. But yeah, I know Coffee and Cigarettes is one to check out. I believe it's on Max right now. If you want to check it out there, if you don't have physical media,
I watched it on Criterion.
There you go.
Yeah, Max. They share a lot of stuff. Which Criterion's where I checked when I had the Criterion channel, or was it Filmstruck at the time? But when I had that, I started going into the Jarmusch catalog a bit. I got through Stranger in Paradise. And I started with I was like, I'm going to go one by one, and I never quite got through it, but I've seen a handful of them, and I need to just like plug those gaps.
To watch the important films like Showgirls, The Color of Night, and Johnny Mnemonic.
Fair enough. So speaking of important films, we'll move on to our next one, A Day Without a Mexican. Or as Scott said, the alternate title was Paradise in My City. I don't know what he means by that, but this one.
My fellow citizens, California has another crisis.
This is a real serious disaster.
And this one may have a greater impact than anything that has ever happened before.
Its severity cannot be underestimated.
We have lost our pride.
It is a state of emergency.
We have lost our dignity.
It's the beginning of the apocalypse.
We have lost our Mexicans.
A day without a Mexican.
I woke up and my husband was gone. And my husband, he is a Mexican. And he would never leave without his teeth.
Every explanation needs to be considered.
Forget about parking your cars at valet. Forget about getting a glass of water at the restaurant.
Then I came here. The place was a mess. I had to wash a dish.
Why is the government calling them aliens if they did not think that they were from somewhere else? Jose, mothership.
If we don't find them, we'll be in deep you-know-what.
Of a car wash, there's angry customers.
And life as we know it will never be the same.
There's 13 million people missing, and you could be next.
How do you make the invisible visible?
Please come back. Por favor.
A day without a Mexican.
Without a Mexican.
One opened in 56 theaters, directed by Sergio Arau and Sergio Guerrero, written by Arau, Guerrero, and Yareli Arizmendi, which is the spouse of one of them, starring Melinda Allen, John Getz. What a Getz for this movie. Carolyn Aaron, Tony Abadamarco, Todd Babcock, Yennefer Behrens, Suzanne Friedland, and Maureen Flanagan. When a mysterious fog surrounds the boundaries of California, there is a communication breakdown and all the Mexicans disappear, affecting the economy, and the state stops working, missing the Mexican workers and dwellers. Okay. A Day Without a Mexican. So, Scott.
This is a classic case of I like what this film was about, but I don't particularly like how it's about it. I get it. It's it's obviously it's not a subtle idea. And again, it's one of those films that, even 20 years later is like, it's nice to see that things have gotten even worse. Yay. But as a movie, yeah, it's all due respect, it's amateur hour. It looks like it's shot on Betamax video. They're mostly what I would gather would be amateur actors or relatively newbies. very low production values. This is, again, it's very different from Super Size Me in terms of almost everything, but it is another example of lo-fi, almost guerrilla style activist cinema. A film like this where, the medium is the message or the message is the medium, I'm sorry. And that's great, but it's a terrible film. And if you're somebody that already understands the point that it's trying to make, there's no entertainment value. And it's again, I appreciate the point it's trying to make. This was right around when, for better or worse, immigration was becoming a hot button national issue again. Um, but the quote unquote punchline is right there in the title, and the movie itself has not much to offer beyond that. So.
Yeah. I agree with you, Scott. The movie has a terrific premise to do something really nifty and special. There are a couple moments in the opening act that will really sadly resonate and still feel of the moment today. And you're like, okay, but it can't keep going. And it doesn't help that the movie looks super cheap and has no chances taking in its filmmaking. Poorly edited. The action scenes make work training videos look like Van Helsing from last week by comparison. Like, it's like, ooh, why are you doing that? It's bad. It's a chore to watch. And we are now averaging one contender for worst of all summer's movie a week with this series. Like, I think part of the problem when I'm watching this is, and I don't know which, let me explain it out. The film comes from an angry place, obviously, at white people, and it's either going too hard about it or afraid to go too hard about it. And it's kind of like, I think, Aaron, you point this out too, or you've made it make sense before, but it's kind of like the impression of Donald Trump on Saturday Night Live comparing Alec Baldwin versus James Austin Johnson, and why Johnson's is funnier and Baldwin's ran out of steam after one sketch but they kept going and going with it. That's kind of what this movie felt like to me, where I'm like, it wants to just keep ridiculing and not find a solution in its story itself or with its characters. It wants to keep making them idiots, more stupid, more ridiculous, rather than trying to be realistic about it. A bit more sense of realism might have made this movie funnier, rather than going with the absurd. But like, also, it's hard to follow these characters, and I was checked out of this movie real fast, and it felt this was a short movie that felt like an eternity. And I blame a lot of that on the technical craft of this movie being so way below average. Like, it made me almost at times miss Off the Lip if I had to compare movies from this summer. And like I said, I get this is awesome idea, good message. I think this was attempted while I lived in California. I think there was a national thing where every Latino Mexican person just didn't go to work, like took a day off of work one day and was meant to show. And from what I gather, it didn't really move a needle economy wise.
Traffic was great that day, but
like, I remember like being disappointed because I'm like, oh, this is gonna, and it didn't do anything.
No.
But probably because when you announce something's gonna happen, people can prepare. People can. It was just like wearing a team shirt that day to support. Like, it wasn't. It was like the teachers taking off the day to go protest somewhere or something. Like, it didn't. We're all for it. We all knew it was coming.
Square Instagram and solving racism.
Yeah, that we did. Remember when we did that?
Remember when it ended?
It was it's great. So yeah, that's kind of my thoughts here on that one. Aaron?
Well, I loved it. There's that
my knee is sore from slapping it.
There's that bit that's on not bit, but there's that thing that Kelly Osbourne did on not The View, but whatever, like View knockoff show she was a part of, where she said, what is it? If we kick all the Latinos out, who will clean your toilets, Donald Trump? And she felt all proud about that. Like she made a real point that got somewhere, and everyone immediately just was like, no, that's not the right thing to say. That's what this movie feels like, extended for what I assume was 6 hours. I didn't look at the actual runtime. We're going to talk about a 3-hour movie this week, and this one felt so much longer than
It did. It did.
I don't want to say nightmare, but boy, was this not a pleasant watch. Just like trying to, as a person that doesn't make films and certainly knows how to make movies, this is pretty poor. This is not a lot to take away here that was really worthwhile beyond like I get it. The title pretty much knocked out all I needed to do with the movie. And then they made a whole movie, which again was so long and not particularly engaging or fun or watchable. I don't have much to add beyond what you guys have already said because it's just more of us dissing on this movie, which I'm all for because it's terrible. But yeah, it's a pretty poor made attempt to do something. I feel like if it sounded like I was hard on Super Size Me last week, for one thing, that wasn't the intention. It was just more if I wanted to point out things that I felt about it, in addition to liking the movie quite a bit and finding it entertaining. This has like none of the qualities. Like this has nothing to root for. There's nothing here. It's
just know that after the podcast last week, I was so taken aback by your criticism of Super Size Me that I cried. I went to my room and I wept.
He was eating a Big Mac, like
giant burger, greasing into his hands, confusing it for tears, and licking them up too because he always squeezes tears. But yeah,
I got a vanilla shake because I didn't earn chocolate this week.
That's the outside scoop. Smash that subscribe button. Yeah, it's wild to think that we have so many like mockumentary stuff going on this summer, apparently, and front loaded no less. But yeah, this is I'm glad this format found was put to better use in other places later on.
Yeah. Gotcha. So yeah, bad.
Thumbs down, Aaron Neuwirth.
Hot takes all over. So
it began 11 years ago and would become television's most honored comedy. Thank you, Frasier. Next week, Frasier returns to Thursday. Coffee tomorrow? For its final farewell. I'll miss the coffees. With a wedding and a baby.
Isn't he perfect, Dad?
He certainly is, Mom. And for Frasier, the love of his life. The series finale of Frasier, starting at 8/7 Central, NBC next Thursday.
Oh yeah, staying at home to watch TV is the correct choice to make when a friend asks, hey, do you want to go see A Day Without a Mexican? And here's what you could have watched. So here are the Nielsen ratings for this week. So another king has stepped down from their throne this week. As the top show was the Frasier series finale with 25.2 million viewers.
It was such a great, satisfying finale. I'm glad they never went back to that well.
It's never back. It's never come back, right? Right?
I was still reeling from Friends, so I didn't care.
Yeah. I was like, oh, wow. Two Titans have left us in 2 weeks. NBC.
Schwimmer, Grammer, Donner.
But don't worry, Joey's coming back.
Joey's coming back.
Oh, 2 seasons.
Will and Grace can surely carry Thursday nights.
They did for a while.
Yeah. Well, it started getting help.
Scrubs tried, but
Scrubs,
it's not that kind of. I mean, it's one of
Will and Grace
sitcoms
also
it
became Jack and what's her name?
Yeah.
Who's the other one?
Yeah. So
Megan
Mullally.
Mullally's. I can't think of her name.
Yes.
Oh, but Frasier wasn't on
Karen.
Thursday. Was Frasier on
Jack and
Thursdays?
I believe so. At some point during its run.
Okay.
But it was an unusually good finale. I mean,
Yes, I remember. I wasn't a Frasier watcher, but I recall it being well received compared to other shows that I know weren't well received in their place. So,
Probably Met Your Mother.
Number 2, ER. At 23.8 million viewers. American I these viewerships are insane compared to now.
So stupid. You shouldn't be laughing at that.
Did they mean my name is all? Number 3, American Idol Tuesday with 23 million viewers. Number 4, CSI with 22.52 million viewers. Number 5, American Idol Wednesday. Number 6,
American Idol Thursday. Oh,
CSI,
Miami.
CSI Miami.
Yeah.
Not faring as well as Friends did. And number 7 is the Frasier Clip Show special. 17.9 million viewers. 8, Without a Trace. This is like the CBS starting to take over. 9, Everybody Loves Raymond.
Hi.
Or Everybody Loves Raymond. And 9. And number 10, 2.5 Men with 60 million viewers. I want to point out, I'm going to extend a little bit. Law and Order was at number 11, but the number 12 program for the week was a Foxxx preview show for The Day After Tomorrow.
Fuck yeah, it was, and I probably watched
Finishing
it.
12.
I know I watched it. In fact, I know I watched that preview show.
Like, wow.
They really wanted to highlight
to be a proper country, damn it.
You know what? To highlight the news anchor getting hit by the sign. They showed that. Like, I remember that specifically watching that on the TV.
I bet that aired after American Idol.
Oh yeah, easily.
Oh
That's
yeah. I had to have. I'm like, how the hell did that get 12th?
This is a really weird episode of House.
Well, ABC's like, well, fuck Sunday night movie. We could have just aired preview for a Sunday night movie and got
ABC. What do we have a Shrek 2 preview? Do we have Shrek 2 at Cannes? Do we have Shrek 2 at Cannes?
So yeah, wow. But it's a shame Frasier had to leave the airwaves, as I'd have loved to see what he thinks of Jamie Foxx's breakup book in our next movie, Breaking All the Rules.
All the rules?
Every single one
that
of
allowed?
them. Yeah.
I need a professional.
A professional.
Me? Who? You.
Him.
Tired of getting dumped? Be assertive.
Excuse me, what? Quincy, did you ask me my name?
No.
You didn't just...
Think before you speak.
Tell me one of your favorite fantasies.
These baby chickens having some chaps. You go first, I gotta work mine out.
And never give up.
Look, it's my fault, I'm an idiot!
I can't understand what you're saying.
Breaking All the Rules. Rated PG-13. Now playing in theater.
Directed by Daniel Taplitz. Written by Daniel Taplitz. Or is it Taplitz? Don't know. Cast is Jamie Foxx, Gabrielle Union, Morris Chestnut, Peter McNichol, Jennifer Esposito, Bianca Lawson, Joe Ritchie, and Octavia Spencer. Inspired by his fiancée, who dumped him, a man publishes a breakup handbook for men, becoming a best-selling author in the process. Now, this is the breakout. Well, he's already leading movies, but this is a big year for Jamie Foxx. After this, he has Collateral in the summer, and then a couple more months, Ray. And in fact, this movie we're talking about right now is the only movie in 2004 he was in that he wasn't nominated for an Academy Award for his performance.
That's how they
working his way to stardom. After this comes, such big deals as Stealth.
Which in the ads, I believe the quote was, Jamie Foxx has never been better. I heard that quote in one of the commercials for Stealth.
Oh my gosh.
That's libel.
Yeah. So yeah. But yeah, this is it. I was like, 2000. Wait, this would have been like. I'm like, Andy had this movie, and this is kind of his stepping. Like this kind of movie was his bread and butter for a lot. And then we go to interesting thing, Collateral, supporting in a big movie, and then like Oscar style drama picture. Like he's showing everything he's capable of in this year. And wide range of shit, and still he has this ability to give you, unlike someone like you're like John Cusack's, which you get John Cusack and everything. You know, that's what you want. That's what you ask for. It's why we love him. But like, he has the ability to give you Jamie Foxx, but not be that guy every time. It's a really interesting thing. Like, there's funny shit that's Jamie Foxxisms in Collateral, but he's nowhere near this guy here in Breaking All the Rules. Like, it's interesting the way he's got this range. But Aaron, were you offended that all the rules were broke?
Break more rules, I say. Big on the Jays this week because I'm a big Jamie Foxx fan. I've been since I was young. I grew up with like In Living Color. So I was seeing him early on there, and then he had the Jamie Foxx show, which I watched
Booty Call
on WB. Yeah, he started getting movies. Bait was when I was like, which I really like, and I still think is one of Van Fuqua's best and only good movies. I that's where I because that's like a lead performance for him, and he's not just being funny. He has to be like a dramatic lead to an extent in that film, and it was neat seeing that as one that like because I grew up with Jamie Foxx and Will Smith, and like I like both of them. Will Smith, though, he had already proven himself in movies earlier on. Jamie Foxx is like, this is cool. Like this guy had to know for being funny. It's nice to see him getting over like this. So you get to breaking all the rules now, and like he's had some things here and there. Like you know, you mentioned Booty Call. There's like Held Up and
Any Given Sunday too.
Any Given Sunday is another one where like he's kind of part of an ensemble, but like I like him in there also, and that also 7-hour movie from Oliver Stone. But yeah, watching this one now, just traditional rom-com. I saw this in theaters. I think like the day after the other movie we're going to talk about. I'm like, let me get something shorter in my system and watch this. I like Jamie Foxx enough. Let me go watch Jamie Foxx. And no, I overall I do like this movie. I think it what I especially like, I'm not gonna say it's great, but I like this movie overall because for one thing it's light and breezy, but it takes its time in a way that I appreciate. The first act is fairly long, like you mentioned what the premise is, and it takes a good while before he actually like writes that book and like we get to why he's doing that and go from there. It is the kind of movie where a lot of it relies on characters that don't spend 5 minutes talking to each other to solve all their problems. So we have a lot of like, who's this guy doing this thing, but that, and it's like this doesn't need to be confusing if we all just stop for a second. But it does that anyway. And why it gets normal that could go either way on why it would frustrate me. Why it doesn't here is because I just generally like the people we're watching, even with Morris Chestnut being like kind of a dog, and Peter McNichol being on the more irritating side of characters he can play, but I generally like Peter McNichol, and he's a very nice man. I met him, so it's like I'm not against this.
Dragon Slayer forever.
The Dragon Slayer himself. What if the Dragon Slayer became a lawyer? In that version of Ally McBeal. And then yeah, you have Gabrielle Union and Jennifer Espinosa. Like they're characters that are having like a fun time doing this kind of thing in a movie that's, you know, it's not like it's a black film as far as it's an all black cast, but it's not necessarily reliant on the fact that it's specifically black actors doing this stuff. It's just more like here's a rom-com that just happens to have a black cast, and you can appreciate that and take it out is, which is a lot of like early 2000s stuff, like Deliver Us from Eva or any number of ones, and we're coming after the 90s, which had like The Wood and all these.
Play at that game.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so
they
like
really specific titles, but that's not my place.
Yeah, and. But it like largely just worked based purely on cast chemistry in the same way that plenty of other rom-coms worked. And so like in that regard, and I generally like how it like wraps up. I haven't seen this movie since 2004. So watching it again, I remembered like what the climax was. I'm like, this is still kind of sweet. I like where this goes. So like I like this movie. I think it's fine.
Gotcha, Scott.
Same. This was a blind spot. I had heard of it, but I had never seen it. And you know, I've seen most other Jamie Foxx pictures just by happenstance, especially, you know, most of the films that he would do after Ray were big deal movies that film snob me had to keep up with. And that being said, I think he's one of those stars that's been very well served by the Netflix model, oddly enough, because he's such a fireband of pure charisma and he is underutilized for obvious reasons by the conventional Hollywood system. And then he does have a lot of fun playing in that sandbox, just in sort of old school non-IP star vehicles, whether it's They Clone Tyrone or Project Power or what have you. Anyway, but back to this film. Yeah, it's an 80-minute rom-com that's full of misunderstandings and it's not quite a slamming door farce, but it's sort of playing in that sandbox. And it just I like every actor that's in it.
Yeah.
Ergo, I had a very good time with this. It's and this is not a criticism, it's weightless, it's pleasant. Um, yes, it's a little contrived, it's probably a little bit more complicated than it needs to be, but oh well. And when people talk about, oh, I miss the old school Hollywood rom-com, I'd like to think what they're talking about. In that it's ridiculously attractive people eventually getting together where everybody has more or less a happy ending, and it's a fun, enjoyable, well scripted, well plotted romantic adventure. I don't think it's particularly knee-slappingly funny, but I don't think it's trying to be. Um, and it's just a solid little studio picture. The kind of thing that, yes, I took for granted 20 years ago.
Yeah, this is, huh?
I like that between this and Booty Call, Jamie Foxx is like, I need to have some business going on with my hair in these
right.
movies.
Yeah,
like, that's my deal here.
Yeah, this is a fun movie. I had a good time with it. It runs on the string of the cast, which, Gabrielle Union, I'm never found to be that great, especially comedy, but she works quite well here. She's doing good. I give a lot of concessions to like romantic comedies here. They like you talk about complications, stuff like that, but like, I excuse a lot of those shortcomings because it's got classic screwball things like the people be in the wrong places, mistaken identity, going with an incorrect assumption, and playing it out until everything comes to a head. Like these are classic tropes that I've long argued like they're present, they're fun. There's a lot of dismissed romantic comedies in the 2000s that hold these things that if you made the exact same movies back with like Cary Grant or Jimmy Stewart back in the day, they'd be acceptable in classics. But in the 00s, romantic comedy became icky girl movies. It's dirty. Oh, not cool. And so they got a lot harsher lamp when people like McConaughey, Jennifer Lopez, stuff, they're crushing it, making these perfectly fine, fun movies that are meant to just go have popcorn on a date night, enjoy, have a couple enjoy. And they're fine. They're fun movies, but all of a sudden a microscope gets held up to them in the 00s. And then they start to dwindle, disappear or whatever. But this is a perfectly fine movie that probably wasn't well loved at the time. But you've got Jamie Foxx doing good work. You've got Morris Chestnut, who is an all-star in my book. Like I always liked the guy. He's always solid. And I went back and I looked, I'm like, he's in a lot of movies, recognize him in a lot of movies and stuff. But like, I noticed a specific career choice of him to continually just do like black films, which is admirable, which is awesome. That he's like, no, fuck, I'm not.
Audiences really like Morris Chestnut.
Yeah,
he is a person that is a major figure. I mean,
he would, but like, cause you see him lead, and then there'd be like a mainstream movie, and he's like eighth bit, like, so he sticks doing these movies, and he's he's a major star for in that sect and for that, and like he's a terrific actor, and like I'd love to see him in just more things, but luckily I'm someone who like watch black movies or whatever and noticed him and always championed and liked him in roles, and got excited seeing him in a cast list. So it was never like, oh, I saw this guy once and then never again. I saw him in a lot of movies, but then I doing this, I look back, I'm like, what was he doing here? Like, what would have been offered to him? I think he makes a conscious choice to be like, no, fucking doing these. And I like that. I think that's great. But yeah, Gabrielle Union, like I said, this is one of her, I think, better comedic, because she did a run on that show Children's Hospital and was having a real hard time delivering the funny lines. And I was like, oh, maybe comedy's not your thing, but she's doing it quite well here. Esposito, this was like one of her last, like, it's Jennifer Esposito before she was just someone in the cast list, I think.
Yeah, like early to mid 2000s.
She turned 30.
She has like crashed the next year, and then like, yeah, she just wasn't the hot flavor. I mean, she rode her Spin City success for a good 6-7 years, and then she had famously would have a very short marriage to Bradley Cooper. That lasted, I think, like a month, and they were divorced. But yeah, this is kind of a discovery, I would think, because I never saw this movie before, and it's now on Amazon Prime. But
The
this
captions are out of sync.
Oh, shame. So there was also a streaming service called Zumo, which had it too, which I've never heard of. But yeah, though it's got some classic stand-ups, some funny stuff. The movies aren't trying to be realistic; they're supposed to be ridiculous. Even though they have sexy people that look serious and all this stuff, just let it have fun. It's a kind of it's romantic fantasy. You can
in a movie like this, the standards for plausibility or suspension of disbelief, whatever you want to call it, is, does it make some sense that these characters wouldn't figure it out sooner or wouldn't catch on to whatever's going on? And do they have chemistry? And I think in this case, the two of them, Union and Foxxx, have terrific chemistry. They have a very surprisingly long opening courtship sequence.
I'd argue that none of the characters are presented as less than intelligent. They're all very smart, successful business people. All of them.
They all know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And as I said, the situations are not about like a lack of, better perception, because they mostly figure out the things that are happening. It's just more of someone calls at the wrong time or says something slightly the wrong way, so it's misinterpreted. And so it's never playing down to intelligence, just more about, it's more farcical kind of stuff that like wraps you up in sort of antics. But like it's respectful of that. That's why I appreciate this one more than other rom-coms of all natures. Not like all of them, but I mean there's other ones that really play down to the audience. And like Brandon, I get what you're saying as far as the way rom-coms, like, you inspect them further and suddenly they're not thinking it. But I do think there's obviously always less than stellar attempts to do any number of genres, and the rom-com is certainly one of them. There's ones that I don't really like because I think they don't respect the audience as well.
Like the one currently playing in theaters in January of 2024.
So like, yeah, this one felt like on the brighter side of the ones that I had seen at that time. Also got a thumbs up from Ebert, so that was good in my book to be like, yeah, why not? So
he's a hip cat.
Yeah.
Except for horror films sometimes. He had a really weird Puritan streak in
2003. I think he liked Gothica, so he was on.
He liked it more than I did.
Yes.
He likes the first Terminator, so whatever.
I think that's like the only of that the Dark Castle films. I think Gothic is like the only one he liked. I think he liked it. He doesn't like Ghost Ship, which is bad, but he doesn't like
House. Fucking terrible.
Yeah.
Would you like to show me the people who? Oh no, don't, because there are people like Ghost Ship. The opening was great. Okay, there's more movie after.
Did you turn it off afterwards?
Yeah,
that explains it.
Yeah, Ghost Ship and 13 Ghosts. Ooh.
13 Ghosts.
Mm.
I love 13 Ghosts going on 30 though. That's a fun rom-com.
13 going on 30 Ghosts. That would be good.
I'd watch that. But yeah, fun movie. I liked it.
Yeah. All right.
It broke just enough rules.
Yes.
You know who doesn't break rules? Ryan Seacrest.
Hey,
gives us our weekly top 40, and we'll just highlight the 10 here.
American Top 40 with Ryan Seacrest. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. American Top 40.
Entering the top 10 at number 10, up from 13, is Hoobastank's The Reason.
It's you.
It's true. Yeah. Remember Hoobastank was like, we need another band that sounds just like Incubus. We have.
I wasn't the Incubus guy though, so and Incubus was like they were like their mentors, right?
Yeah,
so
yep.
They had the blessing from Brandon.
Yep.
The other Calabasas is Brandon.
Yes. So yeah. But number 9, staying strong, is Twista with Overnight Celebrity. Jay Kwan has gotten tipsy and fallen to number 8. Moving down one spot is Alicia Keys, If I Ain't Got You. Switching up that spot is My Band, D12, featuring Eminem.
Yeah.
And number 5, moving up one spot, This Love by Maroon 5.
Eminem,
Yeah.
the Candies.
Yeah. They sang a song with a group
The yellow
called
one.
D12. Yep.
Yeah.
The yellow one.
Sounded funnier in my head.
Yeah, so this Love by Maroon 5 at number 5. Number 4, Naughty Girl by Beyonce, Stay Strong. Number 3, Usher, Stay Strong. I Don't Want to Know, Mario Winans featuring P. Diddy and Enya is at number 2, which means for the 12th straight week, Yeah by Usher featuring Ludacris and Lil Jon is number 1.
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds
Yeah.
good. But that is your Ryan Seacrest weekly top 40. So yeah. Since Usher had 2 songs in there, one of them was named Burn. Let's go to Troy. Our big headlining
And you were
movie of the
doing
week.
so well last week.
I know. I
blame the days about the Mexicans.
There you go.
Were they ghostwriting?
This will be the greatest war the world has ever seen. We need the greatest warrior.
They're waiting for me.
I won't ask you to fight my war. You already have.
The loser will burn before nightfall.
Before my time is done, I will look down on your corpse and smile.
Troy, a Wolfgang Peterson film. This film is not yet rated. May 14th.
Directed by Wolfgang Peterson, written by David Benioff, based on the work of Homer. Starring Brad Pitt, Eric Bana, Orlando Bloom, Diane Kruger, Saffron Burrows, Rose
Ay,
Byrne,
caramba.
Brian Cox, Julian Glover, Brendan Gleeson, Sarir Spegler, Garrett Hedlund, Sean Bean, Peter O'Toole, Julie Christie, Nigel Terry, and Tyler Maine as Ajax. An adaptation of Homer's great epic, the film follows the assault on Troy by the United Greek forces and chronicles the fates of the men involved. So this is like Homer, Iliad. The Iliad is a section of this film. Like, this is the Trojan War, which the Iliad is about a section of it. So, like, this got ridiculed for being unfaithful, inaccurate, but it's like, it's a fucking movie based on some ancient fucking like, folks, it's not beholden to the text. Just show.
Well, as someone that used it as a source for a book report and failed out of college, I took it personally.
Rightfully so.
I honestly, I have read the Odyssey 3 times, but never read the Iliad.
Well,
that's a humble brag.
I know. Well, I had to read it
to tell you.
once in high school and 2 different times for college, and they were different interpretations, so I had to get different fucking versions of the novel.
Ooh.
I'm cool. I'm very cool. So I get a lot of the jokes in Oh Brother Where Art Thou that you don't. Okay. I pick up on them. It's big thing. So I watched the director's cut for this, which is 3 hours and 12 minutes. What did you guys all watch that, or did you?
I watched the director.
All right, the director's cut, which features the music from Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes to bring this back to our retrospectives. Which I was watching a fight, I was like, wait, what? I oddly know that theme. And some babies. And
I know when I was sitting in a theater,
some
in May
babies and ladies.
2004, I thought, as much as I like this movie, I really needed more scenes of babies being thrown out windows.
Yep.
And sure enough, about a year later or whatever, my prayers were answered.
I wanted to see those babies get Das Boot out that window.
So this 3
Get
years
out of my castle.
3 years later, we get Never Ending Story. Atreya, Artax, no. or
Just
Atreyu.
a fucking horse, you loser.
In the line of babies.
In the line of babies. Yep. Killing babies and raping ladies. Troy, the director's cut. So yeah, this is the big movie. 2007 would have this director's cut. So Aaron, how was Troy?
So you guys are already talking about the Iliad and the Odyssey. I'm a big classics guy. I'm big on Greek myth, and I grew up with like those stories, and like Hercules and Xena obviously became a thing, which is like, oh, I like this already. And now I'm watching these shows. Obviously, it's not one to one. If anything, that's why I was very disappointed with Disney's Hercules at the time, because I was like, that's not how the classics go, and as if I expected certain things to take place in a Disney movie about Hercules that I knew that happened in the those stories. And like since then, like God of War became like my favorite game franchise. Like there's just I'm a big I like classics, and so I read the Iliad. I already like knew that story, but I read the Iliad in high school, and I had already known the Odyssey, and I read the Odyssey later on, but I like knew it. And then like that Armand Assante TV movie that's pretty good happened as well, which like reassured my thoughts on the Odyssey.
Right.
So like the idea of a Troy movie happening, which was literally the same year that I had read the Iliad, was like cool. Like we're gonna get a big budget movie about this. That's fun.
Starring Brad Pitt, who doesn't want to be here. Awesome.
Starring a lot of people. It's so like ultimately like I'm not big on it, but like I'm so conflicted because there's like stuff that I think absolutely works, but there's just a lot that doesn't. Um the I mean, you mentioned the big problem right there is that Brad Pitt shouldn't be the star of this thing. Like it's not if you're gonna put him in this thing, like he just shouldn't be Achilles. Like Achilles is a brute. Like, and this isn't gonna be like me like chiming on the source fidelity. Like that's not the problem. It's just like the way they position him as an action star in this thing is so all over the place because it has to have him being like this heroic guy, even though that's not what I know Achilles as. He's more of like this asshole versus another asshole Agamemnon, and it's like it's about two assholes. Like that's the story of the Iliad. Two assholes getting upset at each other, and then they kill a guy in the process. But like Brad Pitt, this is not like the role like as good as he looks in this, which he's certainly trained to do. He plays it in such a way where he's so like he's so brooding and conflicted and ultimately boring to watch as this guy when he's out of action, which is most of the movie. And then you spend so much of the movie like sitting by his side being like, I don't want to fight, and it's just so like oppressive to watch. While all the other things are happening, that some of it's kind of hammy and some of it's kind of respectable, and it's like, what movie are we making here? And I want and like if it's called Troy and it's not the Iliad, fine. But if you're going to make a movie called Troy, I should care about Troy. And we don't see much of the actual city of Troy or have any reason to care about it. We see the gates a lot. We see the outside of Troy plenty. But there's not a lot there for me to be like, why shouldn't the Greeks come in and storm your fucking place? Orlando Bloom came in and took the guy's wife. Like they're completely justified in everything they're doing. Like, there's no I have no sympathy for either side really, because
and then they cheat in the one-on-one battle.
It's a lot of stuff that like really bothers me. There are three great performances in this movie though. One is Peter O'Toole as King Priam. One is definitely the best is definitely Eric Bana as Hector. He is so good in this movie that it makes me annoyed that he wasn't this good in Hulk. And I think Hulk is very interesting. Eric Bana is not one of the better things about that movie. I feel like he like wasted all of his energy there, but like somehow brought it for fucking Hector. And he's great. And like the best scene in this movie is Hector and Achilles fighting each other. Like there's just that, like there's stuff like that that really works. The other great performances is Tyler Mane as Ajax, obviously. He's fucking killing it. He's great. Give him a big hammer. I'm all about it. Those are the three good ones. Orlando Bloom got so much crap for this movie when he's playing Paris exactly how he's supposed to be played, as this dweeb that's weak and needs his brother to help him. That is exactly what Paris is. I never understood why, like, whatever. The movie's so long. Everyone's all over the place. I'm especially not a fan of the fact that this movie that's supposed to be a 10-year war feels like it wraps up in 2 weeks. That's always bugged me. I don't think the battles outside of like close-up, I don't think like the CG stuff clashing against each other is particularly that interesting to me. So like when we get those giant scenes, it's like this is why Peter Jackson's really good at this versus Wolfgang Peterson, who I respect as a director, but I don't think he really gets like that stuff could be better in my eyes. And it just doesn't like why
It
even
needs
watch
something to stick out.
it
And
does, and it just feels very generic by default. If you're going to give me these epics, if I'm placing epics next to each other, I've seen epics that look better than this epic. I mean, I can get into more specifics. It's just going to drag this down. Ultimately, I just think it's a real mixed bag that's hampered by some very key. Oh, the other thing. Here it is. They make the choice to go for like this gritty war aesthetic, which is like, okay, fine, that's the thing. Did I need gods and all that in this movie? Not necessarily. I didn't know that going in when I saw it, which so I was like, I was disappointed to an extent just because I know the story so well. I was like, where are all the gods? Like this is a big thing. Like it's, but like when you remove that, that's where Benioff as a writer, I think, went completely wrong because it makes the story seem that much sillier. That you have this level of war and stuff taking place for very specific reasons, and there's nothing to like, there's no outer force interfering with it. So it seems all very petty in a way that's not really likable to watch. So it's just like, I don't know, like I'm not I want to like this movie more than I do, but like watching it, this is probably the fourth time I've watched it in full. It's just still not doing much for me. So yeah, that's where I am with Troy.
yeah, it didn't really do much for me either, but like I feel like something's on the table for it to be, but it's just not. There's like there could be some key aspect that keeps that's like, oh, that's why this movie, but it's not. And I noticed like I felt visually, aesthetically, and editorially, Troy is a film we still get today. Like it never left. Like we could be like, oh, they don't make, this, but like whether it be like a Marvel movie or some over budgeted IP cash grab, this is some of the safe generic filmmaking that is on display now. Like it even looks the same. Now there are bits and pieces in it that look cool from time to time, but there's never enough. It's a lot of medium shot conversations, like paint by numbers put together, back and forth, and it's a lot of frames that like try to fit as much of the action in one whole thing as they can, and it's all mechanical and doesn't really feel artistic. I it, it I don't I've seen Wolfgang Petersen's films. I feel he's better than this. Uh but this maybe was too big and was a lot of second unit. I don't know, but it's just kind of too paint by numbers that way in a story that yeah, it's based off, there is the Iliad in there and this Trojan War, which include the gods because these characters need them. They have them. They're not like grounded people. They're mythological people that you've now turned grounded that look kind of foolish at times, or like even more horrific in their choices because of taking that away for sure. And yeah, as you pointed out, Aaron, I can't tell who I'm supposed to be rooting for on each side. Am I just a witness to awful people doing awful things to each other, except for Sean Bean as Odysseus, as we know will be the hero coming home later, and the one guy to crack a fucking smile in this.
And Troy too, still trying.
Troy, yeah.
By the way, once again, doesn't die.
He doesn't die, so they didn't do him right there. It's building up to that big horse. Did they use that in the marketing? I feel like that's something they should have used to sell it.
It's on the poster, which I have a giant Troy poster for whatever. It's because of like it was the
Brad Pitt's muscles glisten real nice.
It was the Regal Stars of Hope thing or whatever, where it's like you give $5, you get a star on the wall. And they gave
okay.
So I have this, and I think it was probably before I actually watched. Like we were probably in the theater for Troy. Before we watched it, like, yeah, cool, Troy poster. So I have this giant Troy poster, but the horse is on the poster. That's it. It was not in the marketing because I was like, what's that horse going to look like? I kept wondering that as I was saying the previews for this movie.
I do think this movie does a good job of showing how helpless, horribly treated, and stuff the women were. Like it does not hold back there, and they gives them a chance. Like Diane Kruger's quite good in this.
Hey.
I think she's fine. I thought she was fine. But
I like the idea that Peterson had of like, why cast anyone as Helen of Troy? We're not going to find someone that's this perfection that would, sail 1,000 ships. We should just never show her. I wish that was the choice that they went with. That's it.
Joshua Jackson disagreed. So
that's it. I mean, that there's a that like now she's a famous, and she's been in very good things. So
yeah.
Without this movie, she wouldn't have been in other movies.
Yeah, I thought she was fine. I didn't.
He's not terrible. I just like this. It's a nothing role for me. So
no, this is one of those films where the women are mostly damsels and victims.
Yeah.
That's
arbitrary scenes where they momentarily fight back so they can sell it as empowering and put it in the commercials.
Yeah, and I really don't get like the Rose Byrne, like is she got like Stockholm syndrome with how she it's
a weird.
That is and again, as somebody who likes this movie, one issue I do have with this movie, and I don't know any way around it, they're trying to create a consensual romance over a relationship, which what I assume in the real story was him raping this hot slave girl.
Yeah.
Because that's how it was done back then.
Right. Well,
it's not miscalculation on how to use Achilles. He's not this guy that's like, oh, I got to save that one slave girl. That's me, Achilles. The way I'm introduced does not suggest this whatsoever, but fine. It's me, Achilles. I care now.
Like, the things I want from this movie is just closed room with Brian Cox, Peter O'Toole, and Brendan Gleeson just shouting at each other. That's the stuff I want from this movie. Because the most issue, like Brad Pitt, it was a really weird performance where there was one moment where I saw him fall back to his 12 Monkeys character for a short moment, and I was like, what that fucking okay. It was like a look on his face, like he was thinking. I was like, holy crap, there he is. That's the guy from 12 Monkeys. I was like, okay. And yeah, the fight scenes aren't even like Brad Pitt's got a move where he goes, ooh, and I get you in the shoulder.
It's a good move, though.
Oh, it sucks.
That's a cool move.
It works.
So yeah, in the battle scenes, they're like, ooh, look how much blood we can spew with, like it's wanting to be intentionally horrific to shock, but then they do it so much that it's numb by the end. And then like some of the important kills are like don't feel anything because you've seen such malicious acts. Like, oh well, how nice, he got it, just a nice slice to the chest. Okay, how kind for him. They don't really sting as much, but yeah. Scott, your thoughts?
Fuck all of you. This movie's good. No, I don't disagree with a lot of the points. When I first saw it, opening night when I was 24, it struck me as at least an attempt to make a very old school Hollywood epic where none of the characters were conventionally heroic. And yeah, you're not really sure who to root for because they're all kind of assholes. But you did even then, 20 years ago, a certain push-pull between, Brad Pitt playing basically the villain, one of the villains in the story, but a certain, test screening mentality to make him somewhat of a marquee heroic character.
I feel like they want us to root for somebody, but I don't know who.
They want us to root for Pitt. They want us to root for Pitt and Hector and realize that Hector is in a conflicted spot.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I do think Pitt is trying to play it as, not a conventional heroic leading man, even though the script keeps sort of can't decide how much to commit to that. And again, that's most evident in his relationship with Rose Byrne, which is ridiculous. And yeah, you're absolutely right. I was pissed off then. I'm still pissed off the extent to which Orlando Bloom got bagged on for playing the character as written.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can accept that from like random audience goers or whatever, but like critics should know better. Like this,
exactly.
That's
the same thing happened the next year with and I love Kingdom of Heaven, where it's like he's not playing Maximus. Yes, this isn't Gladiator, you dumbasses.
Well, can we pause for a sec and talk about Orlando Bloom here at this time, because he is coming off of he had Pirates the previous summer, and I'm looking at him while he didn't take off into superstardom as one would have hoped, but I like his career trajectory and choices he's making through this decade where he is building his marquee sense. Like when he takes big movies, he's being in smartly leads and ensembles where he's more of like it's lead supporting leads rather than being like a supporting role. Like he's like Black Hawk Down. And then he'll do something when he does lead. He goes to build his star doing something like Elizabethtown. uh, like a little rom-com dramedy from Cameron Crowe, but he just doesn't quite wind up clicking. And then like Kingdom of Heaven is where it ends, right? That's pretty much where
Well,
they.
because I would argue, and he was sort of an early model of sort of stardom that wasn't, in the extent that, oh, this, really hot, charismatic, heartthrob actor was really interesting in these IP films, and maybe he's the next movie star, and he's not. Now, I do think part of that is because unfortunately he took roles that on paper, of course he would play Paris in a mega budget version of Troy. Of course he would be the lead in a Ridley Scott biblical epic or Middle Ages epic. Of course he would be the romantic lead in a Cameron Crowe picture. Who the hell would turn that down? And regardless of what we each respectively think of each picture, I think I was not a fan of Elizabethtown in 2005, but I think it's aged well just by virtue of, its sincerity and the fact that it's a hell of a lot better than Aloha. Um, but I've always felt, I don't say I felt bad for him because he's doing fine, but
he's aged into much like other actors of like him, the
yeah,
character actor that pops up.
And he was always sort of like, he was always sort of the straight leading man, almost in a bland sense, to the showier supporting character. And weirdly enough, when he does Paul Thomas Anderson's The Three Musketeers, you can see him going, yes, I can.
W.S. Anderson's.
Oh, fuck, the other one. Either or, who cares? And you could finally say, yes, I can overact. I'm going to chew every drop of scenery, and I'm never going to give it back.
I will say, and by this point, we'll have talked about all 5 Pirates movies on the countdown.
Right. Oh, no, they were named.
Orlando Bloom I think he does hold his own well in those films against a character that is so big, and yet he's not just playing straight in those movies. I think he's not exactly Brendan Fraser, but he has a physical comedy-ness about him that I think serves him quite
well. And he can do that kind of swashbuckling daring do in a way that, say, Jake Gyllenhaal could not, or Taylor Kitsch could not. All due respect,
it's surprising he hasn't played Robin Hood.
Yeah. But no, back to Troy. I like it, although I don't disagree with most of your criticisms.
What are the things you like about it?
I like how morally gray it is throughout, where you're really, Brad Pitt is the top billed star who's also, whether or not he's an asshole, he's on the side of the assholes.
And
that's called the butt cheek.
Yeah, I mean, his actions allow and cause horrible things to happen. I like how big, I don't love the battle scenes. They're obviously not Lord of the Rings, but I do like them. I think that, I'm impressed by the scale of the picture. I like how the film really is sort of trying to be an old school action war epic, sort of coming off the heels of the everyone's hands are bloody mentality of the post 9/11 era. He even, uses the cliche, war is old men talking and young men dying. And I do think there's a certain push pull in a way that we would see, I think, to better effect, the next year with Kingdom of Heaven. But
yes,
that it was really cool. I really enjoyed seeing a $160 million major studio picture that had that amorality to it. That was the kind of thing that even then you really didn't get all that much of it. Certainly not now. I mean, you can argue the spectacle and the production values are comparable to the quote unquote tentpoles that we get today, but I think the open-faced amorality where the characters that you're supposed to root for are antagonists, and it is a tragedy. It's a giant tragedy. And I do agree with you that the removal of the gods makes the people of Troy look like idiots in a way that's not fair to them, because in their story, when they would said, we believe in the gods and the gods, that they had reason to believe that would happen. But
I was curious about if the director's cut would, because I hadn't seen the director's cut until
I
was curious if that would restore more beats that would emphasize, even if it still doesn't have gods in it, if it would still like give more like, and is more stuff with Peter O'Toole, there's more stuff with what's going on in the Troy government or whatever, but like it's not enough for me to just like feel anything more. Again, I feel like if you're calling the movie Troy, I want to know why Troy's worth defending, and I don't feel like the movie ever gives me that.
The people, they're innocent people, and they're being
like
massacred.
what people? The
only person we see doing anything is when he takes Saffron Burrows and goes, "Look, you can hide and get out of here this way." That's it. Like that's the only sense we get of trying to save anybody or having a thought about anything, and it's a selfish act of my wife's going to be safe. Like that's all we get. And then we get them getting just faceless people getting just fucking massacred.
Like the most emotion that goes into it is Brad Pitt being upset about his cousin. Like that's the
little Garrett Hedlund.
Little Garrett Hedlund.
I'm gonna be a Tron.
For me, it's a 3-star movie with some 4-star elements and some 1-star elements that overall I find very relatively entertaining, especially in the longer, more nuanced, detailed cut. And I like all the actors, and I like them having fun with this stuff. And I do think it's interesting that Brad Pitt sort of returned to matinee idol, or, stardom with this role, very, very much so, with a role that basically he's the dick.
Yeah, he said he had to do this picture because he stepped out of another one. Like he walked out,
fair,
and he owed
if anything, I think his reluctance to be there works for the character.
It shows all right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not what Achilles requires.
Yeah, that's fair. Again, I have token familiarity with the original source material, and again, jokes aside, I didn't go into this expecting anything particularly faithful one way or another on its own terms. The same group of Kingdom of Heaven and Gladiator and The Patriot and The Last Samurai. I like some of those more than others. You'd be shocked what my actual ranking is.
Kingdom of Heaven rules, but also like
yes.
it has real things it wants to say about the Crusades that I appreciate. Especially now.
No, that's a 4-star picture. I'm not maybe my pick for Ridley Scott's best movie. Troy is not anywhere near that level, but I do enjoy it. It's a little below Last Samurai, which is a far more structured, disciplined, consistent picture that has fucking ninjas in the second act.
Yeah, and Billy Connolly's like jumping in there too. Like it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, yeah.
What was I gonna say with Troy? I forgot. I don't know. It's
I don't disagree with most of your criticisms, but I've always enjoyed the picture for what it was.
There was a mini series on USA that came out like a year before that had like Rufus Sewell as Agamemnon and what's her name? She's in Resident Evil movies as Helena Troy. I think it was called Helena Troy too. Regardless, it was like a mini series, like 3 parts. It did the job better. It's like it even had gods and stuff in it. Like it was pretty solid, and it had Achilles as just a pure asshole. Like this is the Achilles that I'm supposed to see. Where I'm watching Troy and I'm watching it now, especially and knowing that Brad Pitt didn't really want to be there despite working out for 6 months and doing all I could to look like Achilles. And like, I God bless you for trying. Like you're putting so much. He put like so much effort into this role, and I just feel like do less in this movie might actually be better. Like that's how I feel about his take on Achilles. But yeah, Sean Bean smiles, so that's nice.
Yeah. It's funny the extent that he is sort of presented as the closest thing to a quote unquote nice guy in this film, but he's right there sacking Troy at the end.
Yeah, he's with the sackers there. It's it's just so weird to see like the people of Troy making the decisions they do, and you're like, well, yeah, I get why people be fucking pissed at them. And then there's the other side. It's like, yeah, that have had the wrongs done to them, but then they're fucking vicious assholes with everything. So it's kind of, we're just witnesses, but like I said, the movie is clearly trying to get us to like root for something here or get on the side, but it seems at different points to want us to pick one, but confusingly doesn't give us enough to back any of them. Like they're like, I don't want to see this, I like Achilles. I'm like, yeah, I don't know. He does some cool actions here and there, but
it's why Eric Bana rocks in this movie, because he's
Yeah.
so clearly conflicted by all the things that are going on. He knows everything's gonna go to shit if his brother does this thing, and then but he's also checking out earlier than most of the other characters too, that's the tragic.
And that's
yeah.
But he's putting so much emotion in it that I respect, and it's like I like this Bana energy. I want to see this more. And the movie gets him the most clearly. It clearly understands his dilemma the most, and Priam for that matter, because he's just sad dad who's like, I don't know, my sons are idiots. So
yeah.
Like, that horse does look cool. Let's let it in the gates.
It shows you what Peter O'Toole is capable of, also, because he is really good in this movie. He like Brad Pitt, like it feels like the one reason he's like, fine, I'll do Troy, because he gets to share the screen with Peter O'Toole. He has that's the other good scene in this movie where they talk together about stuff. But like compared to Brian Cox as Agamemnon, who's like, is there anything more I could chew? It's like, can I get everything? You have Peter O'Toole as the opposing leader, who's just like has like subtleties and nuances to what he's doing. It like that stuff is just really, that's why it's so mixed here. It's like the effort's like, I don't disagree with you. Like I think like the effort's there. Like it's not, I don't think like Wolfgang Peterson walked into this being like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like I feel like he has a sense of what he's going for and feels he can bring something to it by grounding in a level of reality. I just don't think the choices mostly work, which is annoying. Because I love, as I said, I'm a big classics guy. I'd love to have a big $200 million Trojan War movie that works. I just didn't get that.
I love they have the rooftop seating where they're like, you want to come out and watch the battle today? Oh yeah, let's go watch the battle. All right. Keep fighting. Go on.
Troy, we're all good down here. Don't film us.
You think an arrow will come up? Nah.
Oh shit, it's a fireball.
But
who's that? Ajax. What do you do? He just smashed your cousin's head with a hammer.
Awesome. But, I mean, that's sad.
I'm telling you, Tyler Made rocks in this movie. He gets off a boat, they give him a giant hammer, and he's like, let's go! And he's like just smashing people. And they give him more in the director's cut. They give him more like bloodshed. It's great.
Yeah. So Scott, we have a contender now for you for best picture of the summer. So good to hear. How did it do at the box office?
It did very well. Well, it opened with $47 million domestic, which again was a rare occasion of a Warner Brothers biggie opening in the second weekend of summer, actually not belly flopping, along with, as you mentioned last week, The Great Gatsby. But again, the question is, was that more of a female-fronted counter-programming movie on steroids, or was Iron Man 3 just so front-loaded and those who wanted to see it saw it that there was room for another biggie? I don't know. I've never known the answer to that question. I've always wondered. But anyway, Troy does $47 million. It legs out to 133. It makes $497 million worldwide on a 170 budget.
Great.
We didn't get the Odyssey. How did we not get the Odyssey?
Right.
Because I think, back then they knew that the movie wasn't exactly beloved. So, it was sort of a don't press.
No, it was Troy.
The Odyssey is such a different movie, though.
Yeah.
Like, I'm curious if Sean, we should ask him. Let's get Sean. You there? Maybe sometimes that works.
Did he sign a 2-picture deal to reprise?
He showed up to fucking, what's it called? Silent Hill 2.
Yeah.
I mean, all you need is him and the dog, and then you could get a whole new director because it could be a whole new vision.
It'd be weird because there's no gods in this universe, so like, it's just be like Sean Bean and a bunch of men doing like nothing of interest because there's nothing supernatural about it. This boat trip's really long, guys. I don't know what's going on here.
What's interesting about these three, this Last Samurai and Gladiator, is that Troy and Last Samurai are often discussed as, copycats of Gladiator, inferior to Gladiator, and critically whatever. And they also, they weren't nearly as successful as Gladiator. And domestically, that's true. But globally, Gladiator made $460 worldwide in its original theatrical run. Last Samurai did $455. Playing against a fucking Return of the King, by the way, which opened like a week or two later. While, fuck, I just lost Troy. Troy did like $495 on a
said by Orlando
budget.
Bloom, yeah.
It did $497 in its original release, which means it was actually more successful than Gladiator in terms of raw grosses.
As more
It was
stars.
an incredibly successful R-rated picture. This was back when, frankly, most R-rated, there weren't a ton of R-rated films that crossed even 400 million, let alone 500 and 600 and beyond. So, I mean, in terms of raw rate of return, it was a pretty damn successful picture. But again, as to why no sequel, I think they understood that the film wasn't overly well received, and obviously most of the major characters were dead. So they knew better than to say, well, let's spend another 170 million on a Sean Bean starring, sequel.
I don't think they ever actually would seriously consider it being anything more than a one and done. We made a trash movie. I don't think there's any world.
That's how it was done back
if this
then.
is good enough, we'll make that the Odyssey. Like, I don't think that was ever.
It's like anytime someone makes a Willy Wonka movie, we know they're not doing great glass elevator. That never
for the exact same
reason. And number 2 was Van Helsing, dropping a whopping, especially for back then, 60% in its second weekend.
Which was like huge, right? Like I remember that
that's
being
huge
like
back
news
then.
story.
Yeah.
It was like that and like Hulk were like the biggest drops of all time, like something crazy like that.
Yeah, it's up there. It would do 21 million in its second weekend for an 85 million domestic total. It would top out at 120 world domestic and 300 worldwide. Next we have Mean Girls sticking around in weekend 3 with 10, $10 million, dropped 25%, 55 million total. It would eventually top out at 86 domestic, 130 worldwide. Man on Fire would make 5 million weekend 4 for a $64 million 24-day total. The Denzel Washington movie that was Taken Before Taken, as we all know, would end up with $78 million and 78 domestic, 131 worldwide on a 70 budget, which back then was enough because marketing wasn't as expensive and you had a more consistent and reliable theatrical afterlife.
Crazy.
Coming in at number 5, Breaking All the Rules from Screen Gems, which would open with $5 million, which isn't all that great. Unfortunately, it would top out at around $12.5 million domestic on a $10 million budget, so it was not a success. Spoiler, Jamie Foxx did okay.
Remember last year when we were like, Made in America, sticking around.
Like, yeah, that was
no,
like
not
2
this
months.
time.
Like it was there.
That was our little success horse last time. We'll find it this year.
13 going on 30, sticking around 29%. $4 million in weekend 4, 48 million. New York Minute. Oh yeah, the Olsen twins one. Yeah. Would do $3.8 million, dropping 36% for an $11 million 10-day total that pretty much was finished. Laws of Attraction, $2.1 million, dropping 40% in weekend 3 for a $15 million total. Kill Bill was in 9th place. Envy was in 10th. A Day Without a Mexican would open in 56 theaters, would make a whopping $629,000.
629,000 too many.
And to be fair, it would leg out to $4 million.
Yeah,
domestic.
it made some good money.
Yeah, a certain kind of pride that went with it. It's like, yeah, people should see what it is. I get where that comes from. I wish the movie was better, but like, yeah. The logic.
All the way down in 39th place, understandably, opened in 5 theaters, Coffee and Cigarettes, which would earn $99,000 in its opening weekend on 5 screens. It would eventually leg out to 2.2 million domestic and $8 million worldwide. I don't have the budget off the top of my head, but I'm guessing Jarmusch didn't spend a fortune on this one.
They paid him.
Yeah, pretty much. So yeah, and that's pretty much the box office for that weekend.
Does Off the Lip rise how many? Like 600%?
Is that even there?
Off the Lip and off the
wait, you want to know? It's in 156th place.
All right.
With $440. Not $440,000. No. $440. Dropped 96%, which might be a fucking record. Holy shit.
Troy's sold out, guys. What should we see? Well, there's that new Adam Scott vehicle. Adam Scott from Torque? Yeah, him. From Boy Meets World. Yeah, he's in a movie. What's it called? Off the Lip. Was that like a dentist thing or something?
Yeah, it's got the girl from Mighty Ducks in it.
Mighty Ducks and Adam Scott? Why are you yelling? You're right next to me. I'm just pissed about Troy.
We're not supposed to yell in the lobby.
As good as an idea as that sounds, unfortunately, it would drop from 31 screens in weekend 1 to just 4 screens in weekend 2. So good luck trying to find it.
Did one of those screens acquire the $440, and that's why they still kept it after that?
It's might have fell out of some guy's wallet, and they just put it in the off-the-lip box office ring.
We have it's
no.
What are our box office totals this weekend? 0. What? 0. How much you got in your pocket? Everybody, put it on the table right now. Right now. Right. Okay. Someone go buy all the seats. What do you mean we have to fly? It's not playing in our city. Where's it playing? Oklahoma.
Toledo.
Yeah, so that's pretty much the end of the box office adventures for that weekend.
All right. Cool. Well, that'll do it. For this week, as we snuck in here on that Trojan horse and crushed this episode again.
Breaking some of the rules in the process.
Broke some rules. None of us are Mexican, so we had an episode.
Yeah, I'm letting you take that
right?
one.
I guess. Is that what we did? Is that where we go with that one? And
we have neither coffee nor cigarettes.
No, but I had caffeine.
Yeah, this one's caffeine free. Yeah.
I had tea and
the
chat.
real cigarettes were the friends we made along the way.
There you go. Exactly. So till next week, Scott, where can people get the scoop, Scott, on you?
I have a weekly column at Puck News, and I have a Substack called The Outside Scoop.
All right. Subscribe to that. Is how much?
$5 a month, $50 for the year. Or if you want to be a real pal, you can go up to the founder level and type 1000,000.00.
And as an added bonus, you get a 5-minute OnlyFans Zoom chat with Scott Mendelson.
You know what? If you do that, you will get your 5 minutes Zoom chat.
There you go.
I got 3 kids. I don't care anymore.
Eat ice cream on camera.
If that's all I have to do, fine.
With his toes.
Yeah. All right, Aaron.
I am the I am the editor over at We Live Entertainment. You can find all my movie reviews over there. I write Blu-ray and Criterion reviews over at Why So Blue. And I host the podcast Out and Out There Today with my friend Abe. We talk about weekly movie releases, and right now we're in the throes of summer. What just came out? Like
Summer Movie Gamble.
Summer Movie Gamble's in full effect, and we are steeped in competition, of course, as well.
Come on, if.
And yeah, that would be this week. Yeah, if Krasinski's big nose and a big purple monster. So yeah,
Ball guy, not my guy.
Regardless, that podcast Out and Out There Today on iTunes, wherever you can find podcasts, and I'm on Twitter and everything social at Aaron's PS4.
All right, all my socials are Brandon 4K UHD. You can find all the info on PopCon Louisville, including the live podcast stage at popcon.us. That event is August 24th through 26th. Next week, we find ourselves stateside of Yuba, accidentally in love, if you dare. It's the third weekend of May 2004 as the summer of 2004-20 continues.